I had a question that was submitted previously also by Stephanie, who asks, in 1 Peter 3, verse 7, what is meant by the woman being the weaker vessel? So let's start by going there.
I'm glad you got this one right.
Me too. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 7. So I'm turning there myself. And in that passage we have, husbands likewise dwell with them, that is, your wives, with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. So this is in a larger section about how husbands and wives are to treat each other. And I'm actually going to go on from there. We'll start with verse 1 and get some backfill on this so we understand the greater context. Wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they, without a word, may be won by the conduct of their wives, when they observe your chaste conduct, accompanied by fear. Do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. For in this manner, in former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are if you do good, and are not afraid with any terror. And then we get to our verse, husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. The word used for weaker in this passage in the Greek is a form of asthenes, without strength. However, it doesn't mean that women are inferior to men, that they are somehow physically weaker. There are plenty of very strong women. In fact, we see that illustrated time and again throughout Scripture. Judges chapter 4, during the time of the judges, we have Deborah, who is willing to stand up as a leader when the men who are supposed to be taking leadership roles do not stand up as they are supposed to. So she steps in and then serves as a judge faithfully for the people of Israel. Acts chapter 16, verses 14 and 15, we have Lydia, and her as the, let's just go there. Acts 16, 14 and 15. And because I'm turning to these passages also, we'll be a little delayed. Acts 16, 14 and 15. And here we are in Macedonia, so we are in Europe. And in verses 14 and 15, now a certain woman named Lydia heard us, that is Timothy, Paul, and Silas. She was a seller of purple from the city of Thyatira, who worshiped God. The Lord opened her heart and to heed the things spoken by Paul. And when she and her household were baptized, she begged us, saying, if you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. So she persuaded us. So you have a woman here who, through her openness to the word, is not only choosing to become a follower of Christ, but also exposing her entire household to this teaching, to the point that they are all baptized when they believe. Mary and other women in attendance at Jesus' crucifixion, when all the male followers of Jesus fled. We see that in John chapter 19, verse 25. Jesus' mother, his aunt, and other women stood by his cross when everyone else had forsaken him. So obviously women can show great strength even when men do not. What we are seeing in 1 Peter chapter 3, though, is that we as men are to treat women as special. As if we remember verses 1 through 6, the things that women are called upon to do takes a great deal of strength. Submit yourself? Man, that is tough sometimes. And so you have these women who are being told to do something that is not natural. You want to kick against being bridled very often. And it's encouraged in our society today. But Paul calls upon women to do the opposite, to willingly put themselves under the husband's control. And as a result, he calls upon men then to be trusting and caring and loving and careful with the women who commit themselves to that care. This sort of honor runs throughout the Bible. God provides for widows. How many times do we see how prophets show care for women when they didn't have means? And so we need to be very careful. Ephesians chapter 5, verses 25 through 30 is a parallel passage. It says, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones." So as we live in our relationships with wives, men, we need to be careful that we are reflecting the example of Christ and the church. Marriage is so much more than just happiness and gooey feelings. It is a call to us to be constantly vigilant of how we are treating each other, how we are submitting to each other, and what we are doing to foster a good example and loving relationship while we're here on earth, because we are trying to reflect the sort of relationship that Christ has with us in the church. So I hope that answers the question. There's just a lot of care that we need to take with each other. And again, it's not a reflection of physical inferiority, but rather the care and concern that we need to have for each other.